Welcome to SIG Cloud Provider for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023, a date that still sounds not at all real. We have a few people here and a few agenda items here, so let's get into it. I'm going to share, if I can figure out how to computer. Here we go. I'm going to share this particular document. I hope this works. Is that working? Yes, I think so. All right. So we're taking a quick look at the June 7th agenda. For bug scrub / triage, I did click over to the needs triage and saw we have a bunch that have the label because they're old. And then we had one that I triaged just now, which was, it looks like we have a test flake that affects legacy cloud provider Azure. So I took ownership of that. Thank you again, Antonio, and I will follow up on that one. But we can certainly go back and retriage stuff from 2021 if time allows. But I think that's all we have. We don't have any other new issues that other than, again, these ones that we should probably go back and figure out if we want to keep them lifecycle frozen forever. But that covers bug scrub. Sub-project updates. I wrote a little bit in, and then I guess we can just take them verbally from others if desired. For Provider Azure, we did do releases yesterday for our active supported versions. And these releases were just to put in the zero downtime migration from NIC-based to IP-based backend pool. So just, a little bit of a feature add, but got those releases out yesterday. Do we have any other sub-projects that would like to update us? I'm going to take the silence as we don't have a specific sub-project update from any of the other folks on the call, which is fine. Short and sweet. Okay, into the agenda. Joel gave us a point to look at. They have a PR up to change some health check behavior on Azure to resolve an outstanding issue and to be more consistent with other providers. The most current status on this was one of my colleagues looked at it and said, we are thinking about this, let's wait. And then Joel, I think, would probably benefit from a meeting with this colleague who's based in Shanghai. I took a look at the times, and obviously this meeting is not an ideal time for our colleague in Shanghai. It would not be incredibly difficult to find several hours of overlap for him and Joel. I would probably not be in this 3 a.m. meeting, but that would be fine. So I'm going to follow up on that and see what works best for them, just to have a little bit more real-time discussion of that exact issue. But yeah. Yes, Walter.
Sorry, can you do me a favor and just quickly open up which files are being modified there?
Oh, sure, absolutely. And this is also in the
okay, I think we're fine then.
This is in, I mean, the link is in there, so it's not a surprise. So the request is to change it to be more explicit about some of these ports and to change the health check path. I mean, it all looks very standard and reasonable, but I do understand the perspective that perhaps there's something that could break. And so I understand why my colleague wants to make sure that we're not going to, cause any breaks.
Yeah, no, this is assuages my concerns. Mine had been more along the lines of we have policies about legacy cloud providers in KK, and
oh
we
yeah,
have to do the approving of those. And I just wanted
absolutely
to make sure we weren't
covering
any of that, which we're not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this one, and that's a really good point actually, because I will be coming to you probably to get stuff approved if that one over here, as you can see, this is a flake in the legacy cloud provider, possibly. So this one, I may be coming to you for approval once we figure out how to deflake it. Whereas the one that we're discussing that Joel and Pengfei will probably work through the details of is in Cloud Provider Azure. So I think that one will be okay. Does that assuage your concern? We have a thumbs up from Walter. Excellent. Okay, moving right along. So that one, again, thank you, Joel, if you're watching the recording, but we will have to follow up on that offline. Next up, I just wanted to put on the record for everyone that we are working on the SIG leadership change update. I was actually one of the first people to use this exciting new form to fill out that, and then I pull requested in some fixes to the form. And so that's always the way it goes. And I am working through making sure that Almiko and I are set up correctly for everything. There's, of course, we found a few places where things needed to be updated, worked on, etc. But this is just for complete transparency. This is the SIG leadership update going on. A few calendar related and mailing list related tasks remain. If anyone has any questions or concerns about that, obviously we're happy to talk about that. But I don't think anything more really needs to be discussed on it. It's just working through the whole checklist. Okay, there are a couple of things we do want to discuss, and I put a bunch of detail on here about it. Occurred to me that this outer tree migration process, it looks like we got bumped out of 1.28 on account of not having production readiness review, docs updates, yada, yada, yada. This all happened like a couple days ago, and I saw it all when I was prepping for this meeting, and I thought, okay, there's some work to do here. We're probably not going to make the PRR freeze like this week, which is fine. I'm not concerned about us getting that in by tomorrow, but we are going to we have to do some writing in order to make sure that we can actually change versions. And anything, I'm sure if you had changed things in Kubernetes in the past, and then you go to try to do things now, and you're like, yeah, it's just being marked as beta. Oh no, first you have to fill out the production readiness review. You have to do a bunch more stuff, which is all fine. I am aware of this. I just put this in here for transparency that, like, yes, we have a bunch of work we need to do here, which means we're probably not going to land this stuff by tomorrow. But if anyone wants to click on these, read about these, put some comments or input in, totally welcome. But just putting this out there that it looks like the tasks at hand are going to be the production readiness review and limiting the set of CI jobs to the ones that we actually think are crucial. And I need to talk to Almiko about that, possibly Walter, possibly Andrew, etc. Walter, you're looking pensive. Do you have anything to add to this?
So in fact, I mean, I hate to speak for Almiko when he's not here, but one of the things Almiko was I believe was going to look at, Ben the Elder built a special test target for me a couple of years ago, actually, which disables the cloud provider code.
Ooh. I remember the discussion of
explicitly.
this. Yeah.
And so I think Almiko was going to look into what it would take to actually run the tests with that build target, which I think would be go a long way towards, if we can set a CI job up with that, I think that goes a long way to meeting Dims's concerns, and in fact mine.
Yeah. Oh, I think we're all agreeing with the concerns. Like, no one wants to make every single cloud provider and every single end user sad. That would be bad. So anyway, I know that Almiko had a conflict with today, but I'm going to say action item. I'm going to follow up with him to gather that information specifically. Is there anything else we should discuss about this one?
So the other thing I would suggest with this one, we can go over if we need more than 2, but I personally would like to see the CI job running against at least 2 different clouds.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think that I can probably commit to Azure being one of those. I mean, I'm talking to the people all the time. So
I can push for Google to be another, and if we can get more, I'm all for more. I just don't want to see less than 2.
Okay, cool. We'll see if we can talk to Nick and see if he can also
We
bring
oddly, I
AWS
have a
in.
coworker, Justin. We may be able to see if we can get something from Justin for Amazon as well.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Justin
that'd be
does
great.
one of the other major ways of installing Amazon. So
Okay. So that is investigation between now and the next call, I guess. Okay. Is there anything else we should talk about on this one before we move on to cloud provider Equinix? I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to have to find out from Chris. Metal.
Equinix.
Equinix. Excellent.
Yeah.
So they put a request in. I saw it and I thought, I hope somebody, looking at you, Walter, who has been around SIG Cloud Provider a little longer, can give us some guidance. Is this like, I recognize that this is one of those things where people comment and give support. Is this one of those things where does SIG Cloud Provider, do we have like a checklist of, hey, if you would like to make your cloud provider an official SIG Cloud Provider, item, why don't you do X? I'm not positive if I'm allowed to just be like, come on, come all, or if there's some sort of, you must be this high to ride the cloud provider ride. I have no idea.
Great questions. We have traditionally pretty close to said, come one, come all.
Okay.
I'm glad Chris is here because there is 1 or 2 things I would like to chat about if Chris
Yeah.
is okay with that.
Yeah.
So one, just so we're totally transparent, if you want to move to KK as opposed to having your own repo, the one, I mean, and this is true
Wait.
for Amazon as I
KK, not KSIGs.
yes,
Oh,
KK and
I was like,
Either way.
okay.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I'm using it that term a little more broadly than it technically applies. So good
Sure.
call out. But anything under the Kubernetes CNCF is open source. So as I kind of just referenced, the AWS cloud provider under CNCF is largely maintained and owned by a Googler. And this is allowed because it's open source and anyone can do it, right? So I just want to be very clear. If you move to CNCF, this doesn't mean this is my company's little private bailiwick and only we get to be owners in there.
And that's already what we want from folks anyway. So that's in line with our goal. Yeah.
It is a good thing to be very transparent about up front. So
Yep.
I mean, one of the things related to this is that Bridget, I, Elmiko, and Nick, since we are the leads for SIG Cloud Provider, are automatically going to be backup owners in case you all disappear and there's an open source contributor who starts contributing. And so that's going to be the big one. The other one I will mention, and you can come and ask questions in any of the SIG Cloud Provider about the details. But if you do this, I would strongly suggest you, just so we're transparent, like you probably need a CCM, Cloud Controller Manager. You probably are going to want a credential provider. There are and you're probably and SIG storage would be good for the CSI stuff, but you may well want your own CSI provider. And those are things that are normally stuck in this kind of repo. And I'm happy to chat about any of those. Although I will be honest, on the CSI, I'm more likely, I will chat with you about it at high level, and then I will probably
so we don't have a we don't have a CSI or CNI. Maybe there's some discussion over whether we have a cloud provider or a CCM though. 'Cause that's traditionally a sticky point for me of where the line for one ends and begins for the other.
So there are there's generally 4 operators that have cloud provider specific logic, and those are going to be disappearing from the KCM. So it's things like the node IPAM controller, and you are welcome to run your own CCM and pull in the default operators, but it's going to be things like the node IPAM controller and the node lifecycle controller. And especially like the node lifecycle controller, you're probably going to want to think about how that applies, because as an example, one of the things that the node lifecycle operator does is if your node is, or the kubelet running on your node is failing to respond to or generate heartbeat messages after a certain period of time, the operator is going to degrade it and then is going to want to call to you and determine if that VM still exists. And there is no Kubernetes way of doing that. So that's the sort of thing that generally every cloud provider ends up having to implement for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are 4 operators that basically fall into that category, and we recommend they get run in the CCM.
Sure. That's not kind of my question though. Like, are you saying that the CCM bits should be in a separate repo from the cloud provider?
No, I'm saying it belongs in your cloud provider repo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all in here. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, no. What I'm saying is all of those bits we would generally we would recommend have in this repo.
Yeah,
along with a README
yes.
on how to build and how to deploy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Should all be good there. I have a PRN to kind of get you have some like default templates for everything that I'm trying to get us more in line with. So I'm working out that bits, but everything else looks like we should be in compliance, but
Cool.
Awesome.
seems like someone should look at it.
Yeah. So I'm going to put an action item for me to comment with support. We also maybe we'll need a couple other people. Walter perhaps could go comment. But I think the main thing I'm just going to look at is, hey, do you have any completely wacky out there, licensing or anything? I literally added it here to the doc, but I have not dug through your repo yet or really looked at it.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. I have a PRN that replaces our license file with the default Apache 2 license file used by everything else. I think our license file says it's Apache 2. It just doesn't state it with the same text expressions that you do. So I just want to, I am conscious of that one thing being the only stickler potentially from an open source perspective, but it's open source either way. And we have the same goal. I just want to make sure. Anyway.
Yeah.
If you guys accept it now, I'm still going to be making those changes. So it's fine.
Yeah. Please make the changes. And yes, we accept and welcome you. And we're super excited that you're here. Yeah. And we do not want to keep you in any way. I just don't want to accidentally do it wrong and make you have to start over in an annoying way.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I took an action item. I wrote an action item down. I stopped sharing because I'm like, okay, we don't need to look at a doc together.
Yeah, as long as I know people are looking at it, that was my goal today. It's like, I don't want to force it through ahead of its time. I just want to make sure it's in the process.
I think there's no reason to delay. It's just more that it's possible that the Kubernetes org, and this is one of the questions I had for Walter, is like, is the Kubernetes org going to say we can't process this until you've finished PRing your various license changes, et cetera? Right. I mean, they very well might. I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't in the past because as you just observed, the rules do change over time. So all I can comment is they haven't in the past. And if you do get blocked, let me know, because I can certainly chat with several people who have a fair level of influence.
Fair. Yep.
What he's trying to say is we have been doing this for too long.
Mm-hmm. I got that.
Well, and also, like my cube is only 3 away from Tim Hawkins and the like.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Tim is delightful. I felt a little bit bad about it, but I did message Tim on Slack saying, hey, there's a cherry pick that just needs you to come approve it. Would you mind?
You nudge this for me.
oh, come on.
I think
Tim Hawkins is a sweetheart. I'm
absolutely.
sure
I
he
just
said,
hate to
oh,
bother
no
him.
problem.
I hate to bother him when we're coming up to like freezes, I think actually, Walter, you might be the other person who needs to go approve those. I will message them to you separately. This is kind of the old cherry picks that need both cloud provider and SIG network approval. You know how these things go.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, message me and I'm happy to go take a look.
Absolutely. Okay. I don't want to keep us on the cherry pick topic. Let's go back to the topic of Chris, and welcome, Chris. And what else, if anything, should we discuss about you and your provider?
The only thing is that at some point it needs to be clearly stated that you approve it, is my understandanding. So that either in the meeting notes here or in the PR. So
no one cares about meeting notes. I have to go put it on the PR.
That'll be
I mean,
great,
they care, but like
they
meeting notes
actually
are
say
for
that
us.
they do, like, hey, if you can link anything like meeting notes or it was discussed,
Sure,
like, do that. So that's why I was like, all right. But whatever. I don't think they care. I think they'd rather just see you comment and +1 it or whatever.
Yeah.
I will also mention it would be good if you continue to show. We do have changes incoming for cloud providers, and it can be good to stay on top of it. We'd also just love your feedback on various things.
Yeah, that's one of the goals of contributing, was to get more in line with upstream changes, features, goals, etc. And also we're looking for another place for employees to contribute that counts as yet another project that they're contributing to upstream, because we have cluster API. If we can have this under the K6 as well, that helps getting people into the org. So
that is fantastic. And to the point of Walter alluding to the fact that we definitely need perspectives on changes, like you're probably going to be the sort of folks who, for example, could really get into test grid or, any of the other places where like contributions to improving tests and decreasing flakes is actually probably, in my opinion, one of the really valuable contributions, because that means you don't waste people's time. Because if somebody's sitting there watching Prow and then they're like, and it flaked. If you can improve that sort of thing, that makes people really happy.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on it in cluster API with no avail, and so we'll see how it goes here.
I mean,
it's hard. Yeah. So the problem is that, remember that we're bare metal, so flake cost is like 5 to 10 times the time investment as it is for VMs. So yay.
Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. Okay. So I'll go check and find those PRs or those cherry picks that I mentioned and send them to Walter separately. Is there anything else we should talk about today on this call?
Hey,
yes, hello.
Hello, hey, I'm Kirtan. I recently joined AWS, so I'm kind of trying to take over, not take over, but Nick is kind of moving into auth kind of thing, SIG auth. So he asked me to just see into the cloud provider stuff a little bit. I'm aware of the process because I was involved in SIG apps before. So I just have one doubt regarding the AWS thing for the CI part. So my understanding was that AWS code is moved out of upstream report completely. So is there any value of adding a CI to test AWS cloud provider? Because at least from my understanding, you have to use CCM to start on AWS.
So if you don't mind, I'll answer that.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
So here's the thing. There are two groups that will benefit from this, and so I'm going to make both pitches. there are two repos, as you correctly identified. There's a KK repo and there's an AWS repo, and they're each making changes. And so either one of them could break the other, although I will point out that an AWS repo change can only break Kubernetes on AWS, but I think you still care. You also, I probably more care if Kubernetes, someone makes a change that makes Kubernetes no longer work with Amazon, or at least the Amazon repo, so your CCM. So if there's a interface change, whatever it happens to be. So the CI job we're talking about, the intent is, and I can link you an example because we have a preliminary version of this actually running with Google, but the intent is that there's a CI job on KK, which has the entire cloud provider code base disabled for the Kubelet, the Kube API server, and the Kube controller manager. So in all cases, cloud provider is set to external. And then the deployable, it then installs the CCM. It actually installs the CCM, the credential provider, the Google credential provider, and the Google CSI driver. And then it runs the full CI suite. And so what it does is we have a job on the cloud provider GCP that is generating a known good version of each of those components. And we are pulling those images in our install script and then running the suite. And so that's the CI job we're talking about. And the goal is that if someone makes a change in KK, and I mean the actual KK code.
I understand.
Yeah. So that's the sort of CI job we're talking about. And in fact, what I'd like to do is it should be superfluous to have the cloud provider external flag. In fact, what I'd like, which is what I was mentioning earlier, that Alnico is working on, is to be able to run those jobs with binaries where the cloud provider code has just been compiled out. And so that specifically is what we're talking about, trying to run a CI job. And that's one we think you're likely to want to run in perpetuity.
Got it. Yeah, I just want to get that answer that, okay, this is more for long-term thing to make sure that KK code changes are not breaking the cloud provider than more about removing the in-cloud provider.
Well, it's actually about removing the in-cloud. So once we get at least 2 greens from cloud providers that we've removed the code, at least in test, and nothing broke, then the goal would be to actually take all of the code that those build flags are disabling and actually just delete that code.
Understand. Sorry, if I'm a bit new to this, because I just have this question second part, because at least my understanding is that currently there is no code. I mean, we can't deploy in AWS cloud with cloud providers internal. It has to be always external because the legacy cloud provider doesn't have any code related to AWS.
That may be true, but I will say that whether that is true or not, more than 50% of each of the binaries that I just mentioned is cloud provider code.
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah.
So we are all looking forward to the day where our binaries suddenly shrink quite a lot.
Got it. Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'll take that action. Thank you.
And I'm just linking, and it was in the meeting minutes, but I'm just linking again to some of the PRs that we were talking about that we're still working through getting those done. And that's the removal. I think we're all on the same page. We want to make the removal happen, but there are steps, as Walter alluded to.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else we should discuss?
Just quickly for Kirthan, it would be good for Bridget, I, and Alnico to understand if Nick is moving on to SIG Auth, is he giving up his lead share in SIG Cloud Provider, or is he planning on maintaining that?
That I'm not sure. I can check, but I can definitely check with him.
Please,
But
thank you.
yeah, sure. I'll ask him. Like, I'll mention about this too.
Oh yeah,
Thanks.
definitely important. And it's one of those things where we definitely should get, because I just went through that big checklist that you saw of like changing people around. And so if more changing around needs to happen, we should get that done.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome.
I will message him and ask to
Awesome.
update in the upstream. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Anything else? All right. I think that we're good. Thank you all so much. I will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.